My family Christmas was always a big deal, a tradition my father orchestrated with almost military precision. From the outside we looked like the perfect family. My dad, a successful businessman, loved to show off his perfect life, his perfect wife, his perfect children. But behind the closed doors of our beautifully decorated home, things were far from perfect. I was never the son he wanted. My older brother Mark was the golden child. He followed my dad into business. He was athletic, confident. Everything I wasn't. I was quieter, more into books and art. And my dad never let me forget how much of a disappointment that was to him. His favorite word for me. Pathetic. He'd say it with a little smirk, like it was a joke, but the sting was always real. Still messing around with those silly drawings. Pathetic. Can't even throw a ball straight. Pathetic. It was the soundtrack to my childhood. Despite this, I loved my dad. I craved his approval more than anything. I thought if I could just do something, anything, to make him proud, he'd finally see me. After college I got a decent job in graphic design. It wasn't the empire my dad built, but I was good at it, and I started making a comfortable living. My parents, however, had a different story. A few years after I moved out, my dad's business took a massive hit. A series of bad investments, he said. They had to sell their big house and move into a much smaller, rented apartment. My dad, a man who defined himself by his success, was crushed. He became bitter, and his comments towards me only got worse. It was like my modest success was a personal insult to his grand failure. During a visit, I overheard my mom on the phone, stressed about bills, the rent, the car payment, the rising cost of my dad's medications. Seeing her so worried broke my heart. My dad would never accept a handout. His pride wouldn't allow it. So, I came up with a plan. I contacted their landlord, the car dealership, and the pharmacy. I arranged to anonymously cover their major expenses every month. I set up automatic payments from a separate account. It was a huge chunk of my income, and I had to cut back on my own life significantly. But it was worth it to know my mom wasn't struggling. For 5 years, I kept this secret. They never knew. They just thought they were managing, somehow scraping by. My dad's pride remained intact, and my mom's stress seemed to lessen. During those 5 years, our relationship didn't improve. If anything, my father's resentment grew. He'd make snide remarks about my small apartment or my frivolous job, completely oblivious to the fact that my frivolous job was keeping a roof over his head. Then came last Christmas. The whole family was gathered at my brother Mark's lavish house. Mark was doing incredibly well, and my dad was basking in his son's success. All evening he was making comparisons. "Look at this house, son," he said to me, gesturing around. "This is what real success looks like. Not your little shoebox apartment." I tried to brush it off, to keep the peace for Christmas, but he wouldn't let it go. Later, as we were exchanging gifts, I gave him a framed print of a digital painting I'd spent weeks on. It was a landscape of the lake where we used to go on family vacations when I was a kid. One of my few happy memories. He unwrapped it, glanced at it for a second, and let out a short, dismissive laugh. He set it down on the floor, leaning it against a chair leg like it was trash. "Still playing with your little computer crayons," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You know, I really try to be proud of you, but honestly, it's just ... pathetic." The word hung in the air. Pathetic. The room went silent. My mom looked horrified. Mark looked uncomfortable. But I just felt ... nothing. It was like a switch flipped inside me. For years, that word had been a dagger. But now it was just a sound. All the love, all the desperate need for his approval, it just evaporated. I stood up calmly. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just looked him in the eye and said, "You know what, Dad, you're right." I picked up my coat. My mom started to say my name, but I just shook my head and walked out. I got in my car, and before I even started the engine, I pulled out my phone. I opened my banking app. I navigated to the scheduled payments. The rent for their apartment, the payment for his car, the recurring charge for his prescriptions. With 3 taps I canceled them all. Cancelled, cancelled, cancelled. A strange sense of peace washed over me. It wasn't about revenge. It was about release. I was finally letting go of the fantasy that I could ever earn his love. About a week into January, my phone rang. It was my mom, her voice trembling with panic. The landlord had called about the overdue rent. The dealership was threatening to repossess the car. She was confused, scared. She asked if I could lend them some money. I took a deep breath and told her the truth. I told her everything. About the secret payments for the last 5 years. How it was my pathetic job that had been keeping them afloat. She was silent for a long time. Then she just whispered, "Oh, honey. Oh, I had no idea." She started crying, a mix of gratitude and, I think, shame. She said she'd talk to my dad. I told her it didn't matter anymore. My decision was made. A few days later, my dad called. I almost didn't answer, but I did. His voice was different. The arrogance was gone. He sounded small, old. He didn't apologize, not directly. He's not capable of that. But he asked, in a strained voice, "Why?" I told him the simple truth. "Because you called me pathetic, and I finally believed you." I believed that trying to win your approval was a pathetic waste of my life. I told him I loved him, but I could no longer fund a life for him while he actively belittled mine. I explained that he and my mom would have to figure things out with Mark, the son he was so proud of. The silence on the other end of the line was heavier than any words he'd ever said to me. I don't know what will happen to them. I heard Mark help them out, but with a lot of lectures and conditions, our relationship is fractured, maybe forever. But for the first time, I feel free. Free from the weight of his judgment, free from the financial burden, and free from the endless, exhausting effort of trying to be someone I'm not. Canceling those payments wasn't about punishing him. It was about choosing myself. It was the moment I stopped letting him define my worth, and that's a gift far more valuable than any approval he could have ever given me. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is walk away and finally start building a life on your own terms. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you've ever felt like you weren't enough for someone, remember your value isn't determined by their opinion. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories. See you next time.